This movie zeroes it down to that moment when you are, as an adolescent, at your most full of rage. And what if that's you for the rest of eternity?
Why it always struck a chord with me is it's one of the very few monsters that's very personal, because the whole theme of it is transformation and, becoming something that might be out of your control or sometimes in your control.
How the effects are handled. Some are handled poorly.
Yes, I could talk about that topic for ages.
Well, I think Shakespeare said it best. I started to read, and then I woke up naked at the zoo. And that sets the tone for this edition of the Fright Club podcast. And welcome to it. She is Hope Madden.
He's George Wolf.
And we're from madwolf.com, and the wolf of that is very appropriate. We're talking
is.
about werewolves today. Love that subject. Got a great special guest, and we're talking about some great werewolf movies. But last time out, we got to give some props to a great crowd that joined us at Gateway Film Center to talk about teenage monsters.
Yeah, it was super fun. And it was a great movie that we showed called The Transfiguration. And I think only one person there had seen that film before.
I think you take that as a badge of honor. The less people that have seen the movie, you feel a little proud.
That's right.
Your heart grows 3 sizes.
It does indeed. Especially because this one went over really well.
It did,
I think everybody really loved it. Every once in a while, no one will have seen it. And then at the end, they're saying, no, we're sorry that we did. That has happened.
That hasn't happened that often in 10 years. It has happened. It has happened. It didn't happen this time, though.
No,
The
people really loved
Transfiguration.
it. It's great.
Really
great. It's a great movie, and I do think not nearly enough people have seen it.
Oh, that's true. Yeah, and there's a little bit of overlap into the subject that we're talking about today, teenage monsters, but it's a good kind of overlap. And as we mentioned last time out, we mentioned at the show there at Gateway, we had a little bit of a change in the schedule for the December Fright Club Live.
That is true, because normally we do our Fright Club Live on the second Friday of every month, and in December, the second Friday of the month is Friday the 13th, which you might think would be perfect for us. However, the third Friday of the month of December is my birthday.
Boom.
So we have pushed it back, and we are showing a 50th anniversary 4K restoration of Black Christmas.
So cool.
Oh, my God. I'm very excited.
That really made it an easy choice as well. Not only the birthday fun, but when Chris at Gateway said they had a 50th anniversary 4K restoration. Normally, of course, we like to do the ones that maybe are a little lesser known.
Right.
But every once in a while, something comes up, like we did a couple of years ago on Friday the 13th. We watched Friday the 13th.
Right, 35 millimeter print.
Yeah, so every now and then a special event comes up, and this was one. So the 50th anniversary Black Christmas.
Because we were going to watch it on my birthday anyway, so why not watch it with a big crowd?
Yeah, so that is going to be fun. It's also part of their Cult 101 series.
Yes, which is a great series.
Yeah, great series. So getting together with Fright Club, having a little cross-promotion, and it should be great. So be sure to join us if you're in the Columbus area. Gateway Film Center right there on High Street, and 50th anniversary. Man, amazing. Black Christmas. A lot of people point to it as one of, if not the first slasher film.
It is definitely one of the earliest slashers, 1974 for sure.
Yeah.
And that's what we're going to celebrate, actually. The best horror films of 1974.
Yes.
It's a great year. It's a great year for movies.
As you know, you know me, I love me some 70s.
Yes.
And 74, a great year to dig into. 50 years, yeah. So that'll be fun. December 20th, join us if you can. You want to bring Hope a birthday?
No, don't bring me a birthday
drink?
No,
maybe we could do
my
that?
God.
I didn't say shots. I know that's where it goes wrong. We're not doing that. But it should be fun for the birthday.
Committing crimes if I drink shots on my birthday.
Okay, so that's all coming up. Should be a fun December, but we're talking about werewolves this time. And did this subject come from our special guest?
Well, a little bit, because our special guest is, first of all, an expert in werewolf movies. And she and I were talking about it for a long time at Nightmares Film Festival. We talked nerdy werewolf for a long time, and that is how this theme came about. And why? Why did it come up? Here's why. She made a great werewolf movie.
Right.
Aw, thank you.
And you can pre-order a physical of that, The Beast of Walton Street. So we are happy to introduce Dusty Austin, the filmmaker of The Beast of Walton Street.
I'm so excited to be
Welcome.
here, guys. It's such an honor. Thank you so much. I started off as a listener. So
thank you.
That's kind of wild. Actually, I just listened to the teen horror one on
like right as
Driving down
I
here?
was, like putting my makeup on. Like, I was like, oh, I got to listen to the new one before I go.
We appreciate that. And I love this, obviously, because my last name. I love werewolves, always have.
Yep.
And that's an interesting question to get into. Why do werewolf movies keep coming back? We've got a new one coming out soon. Why do we love werewolf movies, do you think?
You know, I think a lot of it is why it always struck a chord with me is it's one of the very few monsters that's very personal, right? Because the whole theme of it is transformation,
right,
and becoming something that might be out of your control or sometimes in your control, and sort of. So I think it's just a more personal monster compared to some of your other ones like Dracula or like the creature from the Black Lagoon. Like he's just a monster dude. Swimming around, hunting for ladies. Like, that's what you do. But then you've got werewolves where it's so personal and almost intimate. There's a body horror element to it as well.
Yeah.
So I think that's the appeal. Plus, like, werewolves are just one of the oldest, like legend type creatures that you can think of. They go back through every culture. There's an iteration. They're all different. Culturally, they're a little bit different. But yeah, I mean, it goes back so far that I think it's almost like ingrained in not just like horror culture, but just like pop culture in general.
I think that's true about it being personal, and also it can really be, especially with a movie that's on the list here that we'll talk about, a real bit of social commentary and about parts of ourselves that we're afraid to admit are in there.
Yep.
And then get brought out in times of history. And, going back through the decades, horror films have always reflected anxieties about what's going on in the world and about the social, political events of the day. And the werewolves certainly do that.
Yeah.
And we'll get into that a bit. But, it's always fascinating. And another bit of it, for me, and I think a lot of people, is how the effects are handled. Some are handled poorly.
Yes, I could talk about that topic for ages.
And as we'll also talk about, even some of these movies with a smaller budget, they get around it. A lot of times, smaller budget can really equal better effects. You can throw some CGI money at a movie, and it's going to come out looking like crap.
Oh, yeah. I've seen so many bad CG werewolves at this point in my life.
Yeah.
And to me, like, it's such a, like, I don't want to sound any sort of way, but, like, it's almost like a simple thing. It's kind of like, look back at Jaws, right?
Yeah.
Like, Jaws works because you don't really see the shark that much. And then when you finally do see him, even though he's a giant rubber thing floating in the ocean, he's terrifying.
Yeah.
The reveal is just, or Alien. All right? That thing, Big Chap is in it for, 5 minutes?
Right.
So I think there's, with werewolves, people get a little carried away with let's see it jumping off of walls and bouncing off of cars, and it gets very action movie-esque sometimes.
Yeah.
Which is cool if you're dog soldiers and you're practical.
Right.
Right? So you can even do that practically. And I know that became a big bone of contention. It's one of the main reasons Rick Baker retired. Is because he kept going to these werewolf movies because he's the werewolf guy.
Yeah,
right?
he sure is.
Yeah.
What better stamp of approval on your film they have in Rick Baker? And, with The Wolfman, they had this whole big transformation scene. It was all practical. Benicio del Toro was going to crunch and grind.
Yes.
And his entire team showed up that morning, and they sent them home and said, everything you've spent 6 months building, we're not using. We've decided to go CG.
And you can tell.
Can tell.
I mean, that movie suffers dramatically from that decision.
It really does. It really, really does. And we were so excited. Remember when we first heard about the casting?
Yeah.
So excited about that. Cast was great, but it really does. It ends up being silly and ridiculous.
Yep.
And that CGI.
Emily Blunt is still great in it.
She's great. She's always
she is.
great.
Yeah.
Well, it's a stacked cast.
It
Yeah,
is.
it is.
It really
It
is.
really is, yeah.
Hugo Weaving.
Yeah.
It's stacked. But man, what a disappointment. Okay, but we'll talk about ones that we like. And, and we've got some good lists, but we also have some honorable mentions as well.
And this is a long list. And one of the things that I find the most fascinating when you look back across werewolves specifically is what was going on in 1981, or probably really
flagship.
1980, right? Because they all came out in
Yeah, they were
81.
all
So
shot.
it's just such a because American Werewolf in London came out that year, as did The Howling, as did Wolfen. So 3 big ticket, really great werewolf movies all came out in the same year, and only one of those is going to make this final list. I'm sorry to say, our final list. I also love it as a metaphor for female adolescence because that seems like that didn't happen very often until Ginger Snaps, and then but Trick or Treat,
that movie's radical.
Yeah, Trick or Treat does a great job with it.
Favorite scene in the movie.
Yeah, and both of the Ginger Snap sequels do a great job with it. Actually, so the Company of Wolves did it first in 1984, but it was adolescents generally speaking, although our main character was female, and that's also a really good movie. And then in 2014, When Animals Dream.
Yeah.
I think
that's a weird one.
It is a weird one, and it's focused entirely on the curse, right? That the idea.
Yeah, it's not so much of like a in-your-face werewolf movie. It's a little bit more of a low-key like.
It is.
It's like an A24.
Yeah,
like,
a lot more,
of a
lot more abstract. Yeah, very much so.
Yeah, but I love that. I also just on the cusp for us. There's like 20 of these. Curse of the Werewolf, 1961, with Oliver Reed. I love that movie.
Oh, he's got the underbite teeth.
He does.
I love his little underbite teeth. They're so
Oh my God, I do. And then Brotherhood of the Wolf. I always love that one.
Yeah.
The Werewolf Boy. This is a 2012 Korean film that is a good one. It's a good one. I like that. Outcast is a 2010. I think it's Irish, although it could be Scottish movie that I like very much. Werewolf by Night. That was super fun a couple of years ago.
Oh, it
on
was.
Disney.
That was actually, I was surprised at how much
Wasn't
I
that
enjoyed
good?
That.
Yeah.
That's probably still on Disney Plus.
I imagine it is.
Yeah.
And we that's one where we were just drawn in by the cast.
Yeah.
And didn't expect much of it, and really,
great.
Really liked that one a lot. And then Werewolves Within.
Yeah,
that's a
that's
really
fun.
fun
That was a
one.
We were talking about that on the car ride down.
Yeah.
I love everything but the werewolf makeup. Everything just kicks.
But the ride up until then is really
it's
fun.
great.
It
and
is
that's
really
one
fun.
that's based on a game, right?
yeah.
I think that game. It's fun.
Is it? I
Yeah.
think we're not gamers, but I think that's one of the more successful game adaptation movies.
It was a Fright Club Live. It was a premiere.
we had a premiere.
We
That's
had a premiere.
right.
So we had not seen it before either.
Oh,
We
cool.
premiered it at a Fright Club one time, and it was just fun. I mean, people enjoyed it. It was a hoot.
Just a blast.
Yeah.
And clever. And then of course, Wolf Walkers, not really horror, but
Not
man,
horror at all.
we love that movie.
Yeah, it's an animated Irish movie. It's just based in sort of the cultural idea of having that dual personality of you that's part wolf and part human, and it's just a joy. It's one of the greatest animated movies of all time.
Yeah, we
have a poster of it
we
framed
scored
in our house.
Nice.
One of the theatrical posters we scored at a sale, and it's in the house. Yeah, love it.
we
So
love
look
that
that up
one.
if you haven't seen that. Yeah,
Yeah.
definitely not a horror film, but it's got the lore of the werewolves
Yep.
and transformation, of course, is part of it as well.
Yeah.
Okay, so that's the honorable mentions, and there's some good ones in there, which
Yes.
means we got nothing. We got all killer, no filler.
That's right, we do.
In this top 5. So we each have a top 5. Is that right?
We do. Only
Yes.
But I think, Dusty, you had an honorable mention that did not make my massive list of honorable mentions.
Bad Moon.
Yep, Bad Moon. Yep, that's it. And then I had Howl, which was a more recent one. Takes place on a train.
Oh, yeah. I remember that. We watched that one night. It's a British film, and he gets on a train, and they, that's
It's a siege film,
yes,
essentially.
it
I'm
is.
a sucker for a siege
I had
movie.
totally forgotten about that, but now that you say it, yeah, that was fun.
It was fun, and even though I think I didn't love all of the sort of wolf makeup look, they looked very different, and they were really disturbing.
Yeah, it was a different take, and I thought they did a really good job on keeping them, not up front as much as some other things I've seen.
But I also am a sucker for that claustrophobic terror on a train. Busan, Train to Busan, of course. The pinnacle of that.
Yeah, that's
just a
the top
masterpiece.
tier, yeah.
But still, I mean, it's I mean, I'm claustrophobic, so that's why anytime I'm
I
in
love
sort of this
claustrophobic horror, and I love
Yes.
siege horror, which we
siege
used
horror
to,
is great.
That I mean, it's still a big thing. Like Carpenter, did it fantastically. He set the bar high for modern filmmakers, and I'll see a good siege film now and again.
Oh yeah,
This feels good.
Those are great.
Okay, so then we each have a top 5. Okay, so who's starting?
Little overlap. We will start with Dusty's number 5.
Okay.
My number 5 is a hot take. Like you don't hear this one put into best of lists anywhere, but I love this film. Cursed. Wes Craven, Kevin Williamson.
2005.
Yeah.
Something's wrong.
The only way you can break the curse is to kill the person who started it all.
Oh yeah, anything with Christina Ricci is worth watching.
Oh, absolutely.
And then, but you know what? I also and also anything with Judy Greer is worth watching.
Thank you. I love Judy Greer
She's
so
always
much.
good, yeah.
So underappreciated.
Yeah,
She
she
is.
is. And I like in the early 2000s, Judy Greer supporting work. She was almost always the dick. She was just mean. She was, and I love that Judy Greer. You know, she's sort of blossomed into more of the supportive best friend / mom
She's a very
role,
wholesome
and that's
mom now,
fine.
yeah.
But yeah, I love looking back to like 20 years ago when she was just a bitch all the time.
Well, it's like they saw 13 going on 30 and said, just give her that role
Yeah.
in every film.
Yeah.
And like I was here for it. I mean, I'm cool with that.
It was super fun, and Jesse Eisenberg, in this one is, and then it's funny because he also directed the like behind the scenes footage. If you get the Blu-ray on it, which was fun to watch as well.
Yeah, this is both, well, Wes Craven directing and Kevin Williamson writing.
Yeah.
So that's a team.
It is a
That's
team.
a definite team. I think this one, when you're talking about Wes Craven, this one falls through the cracks a little bit, I think, when people are talking about his work.
He kind of separated himself from the project. It had so many production woes. Dimension was notorious for meddling. And basically they had to reshoot like almost the entire movie. Wow. Which again caused Rick Baker to walk. So if you pay close attention throughout Cursed and you're really looking at the werewolf's mug, like just look at his little face, you can tell the difference between the Rick Baker footage and then the K&B footage. Not to say K&B's work is bad. It's not. It's a great suit. But the suit at the end that you see kind of, it looks more like a bear, is very different than the suit that they had in the earlier acts that weren't as tampered with, or in the car park. There's that wonderful set piece in the car park.
Yes.
And you get some really practical shots of the face, and it's just gorgeous Rick Baker work. I don't know why people keep wanting to cut Rick Baker's work.
It does seem crazy.
See, that's the thing. I think that for two examples now, if Rick Baker walks on your project, that's a you problem.
Yeah,
You
it
should
is.
really start thinking about what's maybe
What am I doing wrong here?
Exactly.
Yeah.
But what do you love about this movie that makes it rank so high for you?
It's just a poppy, fun, like I love that post-Scream era, though. I was just the right age for that stuff to hit me, like, you know, stuff like The Faculty and
Oh, sure.
Yeah.
Urban Legend. But when this rolled around, I was like, finally, I get the werewolf
Right.
version of this thing, because I was a huge Scream fan. And it's just fun. It's very set piece driven. It doesn't overstay its welcome. It's got a werewolf dog, which I'm just like is pure lunacy. It's like they decided, all right, we have to reshoot this film. Let's just go ham with it. Let's just go full ham. Joshua Jackson is overacting like a lunatic.
Yes, that is true.
It's kind of because for my top 5, I wanted to pick like a beautiful train wreck.
Okay, yeah.
And my other one would be Howling 2. But I don't
That's a hotter
know
take.
that I would feel good about putting that on any top list.
Oh, that's good. That's Cursed from 2005, Dusty's 5. Well, in our number 5, we got another fun one, and this is one that, did we have the premiere of this at Fright Club? I know we showed it. It wasn't the premiere.
I cannot recall if it was
But
or
it
not,
was a
yeah.
crowd pleaser. This is
Yeah.
from 2020. A terror grips a small mountain town as bodies are discovered after each full moon. It's the Wolf of Snow Hollow.
It's a wolf. Or maybe it's a werewolf.
Where were you? Where were you? John, none of you talk to me at once, okay? They're saying it's a wolf. No, it's a man. When do I get to be right about something?
You want to be sheriff? How about we start acting like one?
And as we said at the time, and we don't mean this as any kind of a knock, Jim Cummings made the absolutely, utterly brilliant Thunder Road, and then a couple of years later, he made Thunder Road with werewolves, and that is what the Wolf of Snow Hollow is.
Yes.
But that's not a knock, you're right.
No, it works really well as a werewolf movie.
But if you haven't seen Thunder Road, definitely go back and watch that one as well, and then you'll see.
Not horror at all.
No, it's not.
No.
But you can see as you watch this one, oh, this is really close to Thunder Road with werewolves, but it's fun. He said, Jim Cummings, who we love, said in an interview that he was trying to do a horror movie in the style of Zodiac, but as a comedy.
Okay.
That informs it so much more.
Yeah.
Yeah, actually, I see it. Because the
Plus,
vibe in that movie's weird.
It is weird, and it's a decent little mystery, too.
It is.
When
It
you
really
finally
is.
get the reveal.
And also, and as we've said many times, I just love the way blood pops on snow.
Oh, yeah.
It looks
I
good
agree.
on snow.
Yeah.
And the wolf looks good.
Oh, it's intimidating
Wolf
when
looks
it
good.
stands up in the street.
Oh my God, it's so tall.
Yeah.
That
That's a great
scene is great.
That's a great still photo. If you just go looking
Yeah.
for images of this
Oh,
movie,
yeah.
you see that one, and that'll grab your attention right
Yeah.
away. And the cast is great. Of course, Jim Cummings doing that manic guy pushed to the edge that he always plays so well.
Yeah.
But it was Robert Forster's last movie.
Yeah, and he's great
Robert
in it,
Forster.
yeah.
And Ricky Lindholm.
I love her.
She's another one of those, a little bit like Judy Greer, like you know her face.
Yeah.
I mean, Judy Greer is getting more well known now, but Ricky Lindholm is one of those that you see her and like, yeah, I know her, and she's always good.
She's always good. Yeah, and she's great in this movie. She really is kind of the anchor for this movie. She's
Oh,
like,
absolutely.
as you're kind of flailing around, like, which of these characters can I connect with? You're like her right there.
She's the Rock.
Yeah,
she definitely is.
Absolutely.
Yeah, she certainly holds the sheriff's
force
department
together.
Yeah, for sure. when Jim Cummings is flying off the rails. But that one is just fun. And certainly bloody though too, like you said,
and scary. It is scary.
Yeah, it plays it straight and I think this is really important with a lot of the films, just even on this list, is that there's a lot of comedy that comes in werewolf movies. It's just kind of a sub thing. I think it all comes from a later movie that we're going to talk about that did that first. But it does the thing where the scares are played straight.
Yeah. Yeah.
You don't make the scares funny.
No.
And then you play the rest straight or do the rest funny, do those scare scenes straight, and you're just like, that is a good recipe.
Yeah.
It's when you start not taking your violence seriously that I get really, really taken out.
Yeah. We were talking about that on the phone, actually, the other day. You and I were. I think that, for me, horror comedies are more funny when the characters are funny because human beings are funny, but when the actual violence and death is not played for laughs. They're the ones I prefer.
That is number 5, our number 5 from 2020, The Wolf of Snow Hollow. And all right, go back to Dusty for number 4. This was one that I was not aware of, so good for you.
Really?
Yeah. I had not seen it. I watched it last week in preparation for this. I'd not seen it before, so thank you for that.
It's a little diamond in the rough.
It is.
I stumbled on it. It was a Saturday morning. I always watch a movie first thing Saturday morning, and I was like, "Oh, what's this new werewolf movie on Netflix?" It was, it was a foreign thing, and I was like, "Okay, cool. This sounds like up my alley." And I was like, it was like somebody took American Werewolf and Ginger Snaps, smooshed them in a blender, and added, that really cool landscape, just the beautiful, because obviously it's Nordic, I think.
Yes. Viking Wolf, by the way.
It's called Viking
Yeah.
Wolf, Norwegian film, and the writer-director has a great name, Stig Svensson.
Yes.
Love that.
And it brings in some of just that, a little bit of that culture to it, and you're seeing it through a different light. And it was one of the few CG wolves that didn't completely make me want to just, put my head through the wall.
Right.
There was still a lot of character to it. I loved the way they identified her with the eyes.
Yes, for sure.
Was just such a cool little treat. The ending threw me for a loop. I wasn't expecting that. It was sort of kind of dark if you think about it.
Yeah.
Sort of that Ginger Snaps 2 ending.
Yes. You know what I really enjoyed about it is that, because I think a lot of werewolf movies focus on, adolescence and that sort of churning, I don't know who my kid is anymore, or I don't know who I am as anymore, and that kind of transformation. This movie zeroes it down to that moment when you are, as an adolescent, at your most full of rage, and what if that's you for the rest of eternity? That moment.
Yeah.
You never get to get past that one moment. And I think that's what made the film particularly tragic.
Yeah.
But at the same time, there's a lot of blood. You know what I mean? It's not going to let you down. If you're looking for some carnage, it's got that too. But the mother-daughter relationship and that concept of never getting past that worst moment of rage in your adolescence really hooked me.
I always love those kind of films too that really, like you mentioned earlier, there's something under the hood happening, some kind of commentary, some kind of idea that's a little bit bigger than you're using the werewolf as a sounding board almost.
Yeah.
Like Romero used zombies for
exactly.
a sounding board.
Sure.
Exactly.
I think it's easy to do with a werewolf.
I do too,
It's a versatile creature, but it's very good for, adolescence, And I thought this movie did it really, really well, and I hadn't seen really an adolescent werewolf thing that worked since, Ginger Snaps.
Right.
And if people want to look that up, where did you find it?
Netflix. It's on Netflix
there
right
you
now.
go.
Yeah.
On Netflix.
Yep.
Nice and convenient. And that's just from 2022. So I don't know how that slipped through our
either.
horror fingers, but a good one. Viking Wolf, number 4 on Dusty's list. So we're going to go back a ways for our number 4. This is the classic from 1941. Upon his return to his father's estate, aristocrat Larry Talbot meets a beautiful woman, attends a mystical carnival, and uncovers a horrifying curse, the Wolf Man.
Whoever is bitten by a werewolf and lives becomes a werewolf himself.
Oh, don't hand me that. You're just wasting your time.
The wolf bit you, didn't he?
Yeah. Yeah, he did.
I think obviously this was going to have to be on the list. And it might seem a little low for some people, but this is a tough category. This is a tough category.
Yeah, it actually is.
Yeah, but the Wolfman, the original, the Lon Chaney Jr. Wolfman, it's great for so many millions of reasons. It looks great. It's an absolutely gorgeous movie.
Beautiful.
It's got Bela Lugosi playing somebody named Bella, which is also awesome. He's very funny and weird. It's a great role for Bela Lugosi. Lon Chaney Jr.'s character, I think my one biggest... I hate that his name's Larry. This is a wolf named Larry. It doesn't really work out for me. But other than that, I think that one of the things that makes this movie so powerful is that it's set, in... There's this Eastern European...
Yes.
We don't know what's going on over there, but it's evil, and it is going to turn this good American man into something evil. And I think that's what it does really well. It's like, you don't know how is it possible that this good person that we've all known our whole lives, how could they commit these atrocities?
Right.
I think that was what was terrifying human beings at that time period all over the world. And I think that this movie is the most effective at encapsulating that, because it has that empathy. Like, I know this person, he's not a bad person, but look at what he's capable of doing.
Yeah, because the original screenwriter, Kurt Siodmak, I hope I pronounced that right, is based on his experiences in Nazi Germany. He'd been living there, normal life, and then, of course, had to be on the run when the Nazis took control. So it very much came out of that.
Yeah.
What people are capable of, not only the atrocities, but the people that allow it.
Yeah.
Silent complicity, I guess.
Yeah.
So that's very much a piece of social commentary in this movie. And another one early on, I think the idea apparently was to leave the transformation ambiguous up to the viewer. But then the producers said, no, we're going to go all the way and make it very crystal clear that he is turning into the Wolfman.
Universal had huge stake in their monster franchise at that point.
Yeah.
So they were, it was very much like, any kind of modern franchise management.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There's guidelines that you have to follow if you're in this franchise, and it has to be a real monster story.
Exactly.
Yes.
Yep.
Yeah.
We've got figurines to sell later.
Yeah, exactly. And they still do.
Yes, they sure do.
It also this movie brought different pieces of werewolf lore into the popular culture, like the Silver Bullet. I think was this the first movie to the first piece of art to bring that into the lore.
Yeah, I think there was also, I love the cane, the silver cane.
Oh, yeah.
Which has become a staple. You see that prop in so many werewolf movies as a little wink, wink. And it brought so many different of the rules that we now associate with werewolves.
Right.
It brought them into the pop zeitgeist. Because, werewolves don't have the wonderful, we don't have a tome of little like Dracula or Carmilla informing us, right?
Or Frankenstein, or so many of the franchise of the classic monsters. They have a book source that you can start with, and this does not.
Yeah, and because all I had to do was read Carmilla and Dracula, and I had everything I needed to know about vampires. Where werewolves, it was more this sort of hand me down by the fire type storytelling.
Yeah, more like zombies, like you said earlier. I mean, it's very similar to zombies, and like you said earlier, like zombies, it's a good tool to reflect back societal alarm.
Yeah, and this has a couple of big names attached, of course. Larry Talbot was played by Lon Chaney Jr. John Talbot, Claude Rains in this
Claude
movie.
Rains,
Yeah. And then the director,
No way
George
they're father
Wagner.
and son. No way. Although the same thing with Benicio del Toro and Anthony
Hopkins, yeah.
I don't think so.
Yeah, I didn't buy that at all.
No.
That was the original, The Wolfman from 1941. And then, of course, the idea that werewolves were immortal was very convenient for sequels.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah, it's very sequel friendly.
Yeah, very sequel friendly. From 1941, The Wolfman, our number 4. Okay, so we're going back to Dusty's list for number 3. Oh, speaking of silver bullets.
Boom.
From 1985.
Silver Bullet. The last glimmering hope.
I love this little movie. It does that thing that only I think Stephen King stuff does. It does that really nice snapshot of a small town, and like it plays into the community, right? And even the original book, Cycle of the Werewolf, that was supposed to be a calendar.
Yeah.
That was like one of the first horror books, like grown-up books I ever read when I was little.
It was actually the first Stephen King book that I read because
Nice.
my brother was at the time was on a Stephen King kick, and he had all these books laying around, and I looked at him and thought, God, those are long. This one was not. I'm like, I can read that, so I picked it up and read it.
Well, that's what I love about even Cycle of the Werewolf and the film, because the film actually hews pretty close to the source material for the most part. It's just a lean, mean Stephen King werewolf story. It has all his tropes. They're all in there. It's just a greatest hits of Stephen King with a werewolf.
Yeah.
And I loved
Gary Busey.
Gary Busey.
He's got that. Marty's got that awesome freaking ride that he's on. That Gary Busey, Uncle Red builds for him. The werewolf looks like a grizzly bear.
Yeah.
It's got those Carlo Rambaldi googly eyes. He's putting all his creatures. But it works.
Yeah.
And the movie just has this like mood, this tone where and again, the violence is not funny.
No.
Like when Brady his father finds his body in the park. Like that scene is like not fun. But overall, it's just kind of a fun encapsulation of like what an 80s werewolf movie I think looks and feels like. Very much like Fright Night defined 80s vampires.
Yeah.
This was sort of that equivalent because like I think one of these other titles came really early in the 80s.
Right.
So
I do think, and I hope I'm not, spoiling a movie that is now 30 plus years old.
That's old.
But
40.
Right. But it's also one of the first, at that point, the mid-1980s, it was uncommon to point to a clergy person as the villain.
Only Stephen King could get away with that.
And it's perfect. The way it's handled, the character himself, it's really done well. And today it would be uncommon to have a clergy in your horror movie and not point to them.
Right.
Rightly so, because of, modern anxieties.
Yep.
But, in 1985, that really didn't happen. I mean, starting with The Exorcist, it was a pretty given thing. Oh, if the church is going to come into it, then the church is going to fix
They're
it.
heroes.
Exactly,
Yeah,
And
and
that
not
trope
in
is
this
still
one.
around.
Oh, for sure, yeah.
We have the Conjuring universe.
Brought
which
that back in a big
brought
way,
that
yeah.
back.
Yep.
It was nice. I saw the first Omen, which did not do that, which I know that's a different topic for a different podcast, but great film. But yeah, you didn't really see, they were always seen as, they're the peacekeepers of your
Exactly.
community, right?
Salvation.
Yep.
Yeah.
And it was handled well in this movie.
And this one also has 80s favorite, young Corey Haim.
Oh, yeah.
In the cast. And Gary Busey, you mentioned Oliver Reed earlier. Gary Busey kind of has that Oliver Reed, like, what's going on with this guy?
He's chaos.
Chaos.
He's just chaos.
He's going to
yeah.
pop off at any moment.
Yeah.
He might be drunk, or he's going to be drunk soon, and just going to just make everything chaotic
And more interesting.
And more
Yeah,
interesting.
And I love that he's
Absolutely.
the only one that believes the kids.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because he's the drunk uncle who's like, I guess that, nah, really? And then he's like, all right, I'll buy you the bullets.
Yeah, I do. I mean, I
love that.
Yeah.
And I love that it's him because it's, I would say because of his performance, but I think it's just because his sort of energy of who he is. I'm like, oh, he would totally do that. Yeah, for sure.
And the parents are oblivious, of
Yeah,
course.
Of course.
I love the fact, I didn't know, I love the fact that you said the book was originally going to be a calendar.
Yeah.
Yeah, that is
I did
pretty
not
cool.
know that.
No.
That's great. It
That's
would be
fun
a great
intel.
calendar. It would.
Bernie Wrightson's art is just impeccable. Some of those shots are so because, like, you know, the mandate they were given was, you know, it has to be a calendar image. So therefore, each one has to have punch to it. There's this beautiful piece of art where it's in the diner and it's like lurched over the counter. And that werewolf is scary. It's brightly lit. And I'm just like, yeah.
Yeah,
this
it's a
is
good
cool
looking.
stuff.
Yeah.
Silver Bullet from 1985. Dusty's number 3. Okay, our number 3, one we've talked about a time or two on this podcast, from 2002. A routine military exercise turns into a nightmare in the Scottish wilderness. Dog soldiers.
Sarge! I'm in the closet!
Bitch of a werewolf movie.
Playtime!
Dog soldiers. It'll blow your house down.
God damn it, I love this movie.
Love it.
This is,
Love it.
I remember the first time I saw it, and it's just so funny because, and you might be the same way. Well, I watch so many horror movies that a lot of times they just become like, oh, yeah, absolutely. There are a handful where I recall specifically the first time that I saw it.
Oh, absolutely.
And
yeah.
Dog Soldiers is one where I just was like, this is an army movie, right? This is an army movie, but and that's how it's shot and that's how it feels, except that instead of fighting Nazis or whomever, it's fucking werewolves. And then the whole cast is just impeccable. And they fill out the same types of characters that you would expect from, a platoon that's going to be encamped, and this one is going to turn, and know it, and this one is weak, and this one is noble, and blah, 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 blah. They do it so beautifully. The characterizations are so great. And then there's the twist that you don't see coming, and you should, and I always respect a director who can do that to me. And then, the werewolves, again, are just scary, and it's violent, and it's funny, and it's just a brilliant movie.
One of the cool things Neil Marshall did, he used dancers as the werewolves instead of typical stuntmen.
Smart.
Yeah, smart. And then we talked earlier about doing more with less as far as a budget goes.
Oh, yeah.
Certainly no CGI in here.
No, yeah.
But man, but you can tell, especially if you watch it a few times, where he's cutting the budget corners, but it doesn't take away from the tension of it or the horror of it. Yeah, it looks fantastic.
It does look fantastic.
And so frenzied and claustrophobic. You talked about when they're trying to bunker down and the siege is going on.
Yeah, and so many of these actors have gone on to be pretty huge. Sean Pertwee and Liam Cunningham. I'd never seen them before this movie.
Oh, really?
No.
Whoa.
I was introduced to both of them in this movie, and so forevermore, no matter what they ever do, I'm like, no, no. It was like the first time I saw the Lord of the Rings movie, the very first Lord of the Rings movie, and I didn't know who was in it, and I don't know much about it, and I just saw Christopher Lee show up, and he's who they're all excited to go see. And I thought, no, this is not going to go well for you.
Yeah, this ends poorly.
Yes, and I was correct, by the way. And that's what they are so good in this movie that's what they will, especially in Cunningham. Every time I see him in anything afterwards, I'm like, I don't think we should trust this man.
It's also cool that as it goes on, there are clear callbacks to classic fairy tales like Little Red Riding Hood, which is also name dropped, Goldilocks and the Three Bears and the Three Little Pigs. I mean, throughout this whole thing, which is funny to reduce such carnage to fairy tales, but it's definitely there.
Yeah, and I think you can almost always make a fairy tale very, very creepy.
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Their lore is rooted in being scary stories to keep children from doing bad things.
Right.
Yeah, and then over the years they've become, for lack of a better word, Disney-fied and cleaned up for families.
Yeah.
But there's some dark origins in fairy tales that are brought out here. And this is a great one. And of course, after this, was it right after this that Neil Marshall did The Descent?
His next movie was
Man.
Descent,
which is a masterpiece.
One of the all-time best horror films.
After that, Neil Marshall, not so much.
No.
But boy, these two back to back. Whew. Great.
Yeah, that was a 1-2 punch.
It
coming
really
out of the
was.
gate.
Really was.
That's another one I remember the first time I saw it, The Descent.
Oh, me too.
I was giddy for days after that movie.
So good. But Dog Soldiers, the one we're talking about here, our number 3 from 2002. Okay, are we going to skip Dusty's number 2 because it comes up later in ours?
Yeah,
correct?
Her number 2 and her number 1 are they overlap with our number 1 and number 2, just in different orders.
Okay, well that's good.
So
we
can just
like minds,
right?
All right,
that's
so,
right.
So we'll go up to our number 2 then, since we'll go numerically. Two death-obsessed sisters, outcasts in their suburban neighborhood, must deal with the tragic consequences when one of them is bitten by a deadly werewolf. From 2000, Ginger Snaps.
Ginger's changing.
How do you feel? Wicked. They're just being normal teenage girls.
We just talked about this one last week on Teenage Monsters, obviously. And we mentioned, as I think we do every time this comes up, that it's also a solid group of films, not just this one, which is the best, but then it comes back with solid sequels.
Yeah, 2 solid sequels. But since you are wearing the gear,
and
I know it was your number one, let's let you take this one.
You know what? It's one of those rare movies, like, I think for filmmakers especially, you see, and even just honestly as a person, because at the time I was much younger when that came out. I was a very closeted, little trans person. I was very scared of the world. And, I think, coming from the trans community, werewolf films are especially a great, storytelling motif to kind of imbue with that kind of perspective. And it was the first movie I really latched onto that I just related to so much. I saw so much of myself or who I wanted to be in these sisters, and just the writing that Karen Walton brings to it.
Yeah.
Her script is just, it pops. It's interesting if you read the original draft of the screenplay, because it starts very differently. It's a very different movie, but throughout it, like, their personalities carry. It's such a brilliant piece of feminist cinema. I don't think you get many better feminist horror films. The only thing that comes close is, obviously Jennifer's Body, which is a masterpiece.
Yes.
And these two get compared a lot. But Ginger Snaps is just one of those magic little movies that just changed my life. And then also, just reaffirmed, like, yeah, this is my genre. I love werewolves. I think everything that movie does is perfect. I think the sequel is darn near perfect. And honestly, the prequel is Werewolves Siege a Fort.
Oh yeah, I love I do. I really love the third installment, the prequel, a lot. And this movie was an inspiration for you for Beasts of Walton Street.
Oh, absolutely. The name Walton Street comes from Karen Walton, who wrote Ginger Snaps.
Nice.
Very obvious. I wear my influences, like, not just on my sleeve, but they're on the hat, they're on my back patch. Ginger Snaps is just such a smart, clever film. It was the first film, even outside of just werewolves, that really tackled, what it's really like to be a teenage girl. And I thought the way that it infused it with just, like, the wit that it has.
Yes, it really does, especially with, I think we mentioned this last week, Mimi Rogers as the mom brings some great satirical wit to it. Yeah.
The mom is wonderful. Pam is just one of those magical little characters.
Yeah, she's great.
When she brings her the cake, and it's got, like, all of, like, the cherry sauce on it, and you're just going. And, like, and it's written through such a lens, like, her script is so honest that even when it's in the black comedy moments or, like, the elevated moments, these characters still feel like grounded, real girls that we all knew or wanted to be or were.
Right.
And it was the first, I think, just feminist horror film that came out of the gate swinging that loud and proud. It wasn't hidden behind a studio mandate. It wasn't dulled down to make it more mass appeal. It was just unabashedly what it was. And it's such a punk rock ballsy film.
And I know that this movie, and then also you mentioned a minute ago, Jennifer's Body, they both kind of inspire, or you have an upcoming film that you're directing that right now is kind of in a crowdfunding development stage, and people can look this up and contribute if they want to, and it is called
That is What's Wrong, Wendy.
What's Wrong, Wendy?
It is very much in that vein.
Tell us a little. Can you tell us anything about it?
Yeah, I mean, that is definitely that is Spooky Madison's baby. They sent me this, script. They said, "Hey, I wrote this thing. It's very you. You'll love it." And I got to the end of it, and I was like, "Well, this is only the first 15 pages." And they were like, "Well, it's a short." And I was like, "No, this is not a short. I want to know more. Tell me more." And usually, I direct my own stuff. I don't usually get outside scripts, and it's not any kind of ego. It's just I like to tell personal stories. But, like, it was such, like, their vibe mixed with my vibe, and, like, the two crossover pretty well anyways, that I was like, we have to make this film. What do you need to get this off the ground? And so we had a bunch of meetings and stuff, and then, I mean, we're already really tight anyways, so it's, like, a very easy working relationship. So my goal there is really to kind of bring like their vision of that angst-ridden metaphor of vampirism as, hell as a teenage girl.
Yes.
That is great. So that's just in pre-production mode right now?
Yeah, we're in pre-pro development. We've already started the casting process. Like I said, it's very, very much Spooky's baby. So it's about, every step of the way is making sure that, as the director, and it's kind of cool because I'm coming from a different approach in my normal stuff. This is more about preserving their vision and really finding, cool creative ways into that. Rather than, like Walton Street or Fiber Burn, where it was just like me pouring my heart out on a page.
Right.
So it's my first opportunity to interpret someone else's work.
Yeah.
That's exciting.
Yeah, that
which is cool. Yeah.
If somebody wants to support that financially, how can they do that?
Indiegogo. It's the What's Wrong Wendy Indiegogo. You can find it pretty easily.
So go do it.
We post about it frequently.
All right. Well, keep us posted, and we will do it as well with updates. And we didn't mention going back to Ginger Snaps, the director, John Fawcett, and, of course, the two leads are great, Emily Perkins and Catherine Isabel.
Yeah, and Catherine Isabel, of course, has gone on to be just like a staple in the genre
She's a horror
ever since
icon
then. Yeah,
now,
she really is. But the two of them together, they are perfect.
Have to give a shout-out to once she turns and there's that glamour shot of her walking down the hall. Nice.
Yeah.
From over here on the guy's end of the table, that's a nice shot.
Well, you know what? Honestly, that is such like the lesbians claimed that
All
shot
right.
too.
Yeah.
Don't feel bad. Everybody claimed that shot.
Understood.
I myself just like a good redheaded murderer.
Yeah.
So it works for everybody.
Right. Everybody's happy with that shot.
Number 2 on our list, that is Ginger Snaps from 2000. Okay, so we'll go up to, as we said, these are 1 and 2 are inverted on both of our lists. So our number 1 is Dusty's number 2, and it's a great one. Classic from 81. American college students David Kessler and Jack Goodman are on a walking tour of Britain and are attacked by a werewolf. You know the rest, an American werewolf in London.
Please believe me. Believe what? That tomorrow night, beneath the full moon, I'll sprout hair and fangs and eat people?
Are you all right now?
I don't know. I'll let you know the next full moon.
Everybody dies in it. Very bloody.
Mr. Kessler, please.
Enough. That's enough. There, we got those out of the way.
We're done now. But we say that at home a lot.
We do.
That's awesome. I love that.
Usually talking to the cat. That's enough.
Yes. Oh, Velma, it's enough.
We always quote, you look like Meatloaf, Jack. Because, anytime somebody, looks rugged or they come in, it's like, you look like Meatloaf, Jack.
Nice.
Well, this is one brings in a lot of the things we've talked about already. The practical effects, the humor.
Yes.
And the blood. It's all here.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. It's a brilliantly written script.
Oh, wait. I just thought of another one we always say. I shall report this.
That's right, we do. And, that's funny that you bring that up. There are so many really great scenes, iconic scenes throughout this movie. That one in the tube.
Yeah.
From the very beginning, and
Oh
I
my
love
God.
the performance too, where he's so, I shall report this,
Yeah.
and then just the look on his face when he realizes what he's
Terror.
doing with just
Yeah.
a brilliant moment of acting, that sheer terror, and then everything in the tube, the sound that the werewolf makes, the moment on the escalator, the moment of just surrender. It's an incredibly brilliantly, perfectly executed kill sequence.
And you only see a very
Yeah.
little bit,
Yeah.
but it's the first time in the film you see the size of
Yes.
it.
Yes.
Yes.
And you're just like, oh, that's terrifying.
Oh
Yeah,
yeah,
exactly.
It's a scary movie. It's a scary wolf.
And it's got
yeah.
it's got a couple of those quick, not jump scares, but just flashes.
Oh, yeah.
That really his face.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden, ooh.
Yeah,
where did that
those
come
big, huge yellow teeth
Yeah.
covered in blood.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it's an unusual looking wolf.
Oh, yeah. It's, Rick Baker wanted to do a Hound from Hell was the direction he was given. And he actually based it on his dog that he owned at the time. So, the big mane and stuff that it's got. Plus, the mane is great for hiding stuff
Oh, yeah.
when you're putting the
Yeah.
suit together. Trust me, I know.
Yes.
But it had the big mane and it had just sort of a lot of the way the fur was and stuff. And then the face, he really just wanted to over exaggerate and give it a Hound from Hell kind of
Yeah.
look
Yeah.
rather than a stereotypical just let's mold a wolf face. 'Cause
Right.
that's not interesting. We've
Plus,
seen
he's
it.
done it before.
Yeah. There was not an Academy Award for best,
Right.
makeup effects before this.
Right.
Yeah.
American Werewolf set that.
Yeah.
And, it's the first horror movie I ever saw.
Really?
I remember. And you were very little. It's not like,
3.
Yeah. It's not like as a teen I went back and found this movie.
Wow.
You were 3 years old when you saw this movie, and it really
Wow.
kind of set you on your path.
Yeah. I wanted to make a werewolf movie ever since I saw that, and by God, we finally did it.
That's
which
right.
Is dope.
Yeah.
I love four-legged werewolves. I like the standing ones just a little less. And I just love everything about the film. It was really hard for me, actually. Like, if anything, I would put this and Ginger Snaps on kind of an even keel.
Sure.
With each other. But dang, this is a cracking movie.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. And of course, David Naughton is the lead, and who got fired from his I'm a Pepper ads because of this.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. And
Yep.
he was the I'm a Pepper guy. And then Jenny Aguilar, and the finale.
I love her.
Yeah, and the
She's so
finale
great.
has some real.
Oh, the tragedy.
Yeah,
there.
real
Yeah.
tragedy, and she's just staring, and then they focus on the eyes of the wolf.
And it
Yeah,
softens for just a
Yeah.
second.
Yeah.
And it's a beautiful close-up work that
Yeah.
they did with Baker. And plus, Landis at that time, this is pre-Twilight Zone.
Right.
He had a really great cinematographer that he was used to working with. They brought so much mood to that
Yeah, they
piece.
did. Oh, yeah.
And it really married sort of the European yet American styles of filmmaking together. The Piccadilly Circus Massacre is
Oh, my
probably
God.
one of the
Oh.
best things ever put to film.
Oh my God,
So
it's amazing, and I think that sometimes it's overlooked because the material on the moors, they're funny. You like these characters, you're terrified because it's not going to go well for them. I mean,
Yeah.
it is such a mood piece right there because it's this weird, which I think the entire film walks this line so brilliantly. It's funny and scary. It's not silly. I mean, it's got
it's
moments
never,
of being silly, but I mean,
yeah.
those two together, the characters are funny. They're funny people. They say funny things as normal humans do. And when they're on the moor and you can hear it, and he's like, "Fuck, what is that sound?"
Yeah.
You're like, I don't just know them. I think I am them.
and then the humor becomes organic into the story
Yeah.
because all those victims
Yeah.
keep coming back and telling him
God.
what you have to do.
Yeah.
And that couple that's all still happy-go-lucky.
yeah.
Oh,
I love the happy
yeah.
couples.
And then Griffin Dunn, of course, his best friend, just gets more and more mauled up.
Oh, yeah.
And that horrifies David, of course, and he has to realize his destiny, what he
Yeah.
thinks he has to do. Yeah, it works, but
does.
it's funny.
It is.
But in a bittersweet way.
Yeah.
And it's dark.
Yes.
Like
Yeah.
it's very gallows humor, and it's also, the rotting puppet is not like it's not funny. It's not played for comedy like
No.
saying like The Frighteners where
Right,
the
right,
makeups
right,
were
right.
bigger and grander. This was like a human corpse that's
Yeah.
decaying
Yeah.
talking. And
Yeah.
I'm like, he's not pretty to look at.
Yeah.
Oh, no.
And
No.
like, even when he's freshly mauled, the little dewlap.
Oh,
hanging
yeah.
on his
The
teeth.
hanging there.
Yeah.
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 Like
Yeah.
he's
Nasty.
nasty to look at,
Yeah.
and it's the movie's got kind of a little bit of a mean streak.
Yeah, it really does. And
Yeah.
it does have also a spot on soundtrack that
Oh, yeah.
maybe too spot on, but I think for a film with a comedy element that works.
Mm-hmm.
And then we haven't even really talked about the transformation scene, which of course was at the time.
Oh
just-
my Lord, I remember seeing this
Groundbreaking.
in the
Yeah.
theaters, just blew our minds.
Yeah. I saw it pretty young, not 3, but pretty young. And as my brother-in-law was like, I think that you need to watch, because I liked spooky stuff, but I
Yeah.
had not seen this movie. And he was like, he doesn't particularly like spooky stuff, but he just couldn't get past that transformation scene. He's like, and he just kept telling me about it. Just he's going to turn into a werewolf, and it's going to be the greatest thing. And I remember like thinking even then as a little kid, like, it's a pretty big build-up, but it was great.
Oh yeah,
Oh, it was
I
worth
remember
it.
because I was 16, 17. We all went. Loved it.
Yeah.
Loved it. And that scene especially, sort of like in a way of earlier seeing the chest bursting scene in Alien. Just
my God.
you're not quite ready
No.
for how
No.
far it goes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because
yeah.
we had all seen werewolf movies before that, and they didn't look like that.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, and it was the first movie to show it being this painful, awful,
Yeah.
bone-breaking
Right,
experience.
because he's just sitting there, just reading, and all of a sudden, just screaming
Yeah.
bloody murder
Yeah.
about
Yeah.
he's burning up. Yeah,
Right.
man. Yeah,
And it is funny because we go back to the Lon Chaney Jr. one, and it's sort of at the time it was groundbreaking, but
Yeah.
now it seems so soft, And of course he still had pants on, and it was like since American Werewolf in London, those transformation scenes tend to be painful. Like you recognize that
Yeah.
the body is contorting, the bones are breaking. This is going to be a horrifying experience for these people, and that was really the first movie that did it.
Well, it was very funny, actually, because that same year, obviously, we were talking earlier about this being a big werewolf
Yeah.
year. They're literally concurrently
Right.
doing The Howling at the same time,
Yeah.
which Rick Baker was originally signed to do. But he had a pre-existing arrangement with Landis. So he had to leave, and he picked Rob Bottin.
Right.
Who was like 18.
Uh-huh.
to run the show and was like, Rob, you got this. And so literally on the sets of American Werewolf and Howling, you had Rick Baker calling Rob and Rob calling Rick Baker. So it's kind of funny that people always sort of pit the movies against each other.
Yeah,
because there were so many behind the scenes people like Landis was friends with Dante, and it was like there was no competition until it came to the release.
Right.
Yeah.
You know, it's a funny thing, too, is that The Howling did not make our final 5.
No.
Again, it's because it's a really, really stacked category. But the look of the wolf and the transformation of the wolf in The Howling, that is a fucking terrifying
It's
scene.
scary.
That is
Oh.
a
It
scary
is
scene.
scary.
Yeah.
And it's funny that you bring that up because we had the great David Greathouse on here
Oh,
one
yeah,
time.
yeah. He's swell.
And we were talking about blood effects and movie makeup and transformations, and that was really the topic. And he brought that same, the two of them were on it together, back and forth. And we talked for a while about how iconic those wolf transformations and just the looks of those wolves. They're very, very different, but they are so creepy.
They're some people call them the rabbit wolves because they got the big ears.
Yeah, the big ears.
But they're like when you see the actual like standing version of it, they're about the height of Neil Marshall's on Dog Soldiers.
Yeah.
Which you don't quite get the sense of in the movie itself. But I saw a recent restoration of the original suit that they just did. Thank God it's been preserved.
Yeah.
And it's massive beast. It's beautiful art. And you know what else? I didn't put it on my list, but Company of the Wolves has an awesome transformation.
It does.
With the snout coming out with the mouth.
Yes.
It's
Yes.
right on the cover of the movie, right? They knew.
Yeah.
I'm glad you mentioned that. We had not mentioned that yet. Man, that's you mentioned it was a stacked list, and it is because The Howling is really
It's a great
solid.
movie. Yes,
it really,
is.
good.
Yeah,
it really is good. But our number one, and Dusty's number 2, the classic, An American Werewolf in London. That's a great conversation about werewolves.
Yes, right.
Long overdue. I
Long
think.
overdue.
Yeah, I'm glad werewolves are getting some attention and
Yeah.
love. They're always
Yeah.
sort of like the weird like stepchild of like the monster family. They're like, oh yeah, we'll do another version of Dracula. Wolfman used to
Right.
hang, which they're doing another version with Lee Winnell.
Yes,
they
that's
are.
right.
Yeah.
So-
And we got two Frankensteins coming out next year. That both of them look magnificent. One, of course, is Guillermo del Toro's, and then the other is Maggie Gyllenhaal's.
Oh yeah.
They both look very different and really, really cool. And if I say, I think that there is going to be a werewolf resurgence in that sort of
I do too.
the Wolfman vein of you think you know this man, but you don't know what he's capable of doing. This man.
yeah.
I feel like that's a terror that the world is facing right now, and I feel like we're going to see that in a lot of werewolf.
Well, and
movies.
then Lee Winnell has the new Wolfman coming with
Yeah.
Christopher Abbott.
Yeah.
And Julia Garner.
Yeah.
I think you're right about that.
Yeah.
Political commentary. Yeah, there'll be things already going on.
Oh, horror's about to dominate the market
Yes.
for
Oh,
the
yeah.
next
Yes.
like 5 to 10 years. It
For
always
sure.
does during times of, if you track it.
Oh, yeah.
It during political upheaval, horror box office goes way up.
Yeah. And it's ones, they're the type of movie, the genre that the studios can count on to be profitable.
Yeah.
Horror films are a good bet many times to make the money back.
And they're therapeutic because you sit through something terribly scary and you survive it.
There's catharsis
Yes.
there.
You
Very much so.
survive it.
During the pandemic.
Right, yeah.
That was
Yeah.
the only thing making money were these weird little horror movies that indie guys were trying to figure out, like, how do we put something together while I'm in lockdown?
Right, yeah.
That's where we got the host from.
That's right.
So,
Good stuff. Good werewolf talk. Dusty Austin, thank you so much.
No,
this has been so
thank
much
you.
fun. This has been great. And we talked a little bit about your movie and your Indiegogo, but where else can people find you out on the socials?
you know what? I'm biggest on Instagram. That's my happy spot.
Okay.
Facebook is more of a, I have to post here. But yeah, Instagram is definitely Street Rat Studios.
Street Rat
Instagram.
Studios on
Yep.
Instagram. And looking forward to. We talked a little bit about the next edition of Fright Club Live. That'll be December. Well, actually, we talked a lot about it.
Yes, we
but That's
did.
all right. We're going to mention it again. December 20th, Gateway Film Center. Celebrate not only Hope's birthday, but the 50th anniversary restoration of Black Christmas.
That's right.
And Street Rat Studios, you also have another project coming up
Yes.
that Hope is a little bit involved in.
That's right. When we were doing the script, I wanted sort of the RoboCop opening with the cool newscaster that's like sort of oblivious that news is scary. And so I wrote this part, and I had Hope in mind because I'd already met you guys at like Nightmares and stuff, and I hit it off with you. I was like, man, I bet she's fun to work with. So, and I think that you would bring just a lot of humor, and you've got that great radio voice. And so, like, we were so blessed that you said yes to come on to Fiberburn.
I'm very excited and nervous. But yeah, Fiber Burn is the name of it, and it is it's a little bit more sci-fi than your other two films.
Yeah. It's kind of like if you put like Hardware, Tank Girl, and Alien in a blender with Requiem for a Dream. Like you sort of, it's this weird like combo platter of all of those sort of subgenres that I really love. That I was like, I bet I can push these together. And I ended up writing something that was really personal. But it also has a little bit of, I love RoboCop. I love that screenplay. And I was like, you can't really do like androids gone amok type movie without referencing RoboCop. So I was like, I want that scene with the newscaster. And thank God you came on. Because I didn't have a backup. I was like,
I'm very, very excited to do it, and
you.
I hope I don't screw it up.
All right.
You will not.
Well, we'll keep updates coming about that one as well. So a lot going on. Of course, you can find us on all the socials at Mad Wolf Columbus, the main website, madwolf.com, and all the Fright Club. Fright Club Live has its own Instagram page as well, and you can find all the episodes, Fright Club Podcast, on your favorite apps. And look forward to seeing you if you can make it to Gateway December 20th for the birthday party and the Black Christmas restoration as we talk about the horror of 1974. I am looking forward to that.
Yeah, it's a good
That's going to be a good
going
to be a good conversation. So make it if you can. Keep in touch if you can. Thank you once again to Dusty Austin, Street Rat Studios. Appreciate it. This has been great. This has been fun.
Good. I hope so.
Yes.
Like, I don't want to be the lame duck.
No.
Not at all. This is
we
great.
knew that you were going to bring the intel for this one.
Oh, very much so. So until next time, she is Hope Madden.
He's George Wolf.
And this is the Fright Club Podcast, and we'll let Dusty take us out.
Stay frightful, my friends.
Yay!